Starwood property. Then you get to the property page, which is you could pick from 10 different hotels, which are in Dallas or wherever it is. And then you get to the rate page where that's where you'll see it costs this much for a king-size bed, this much for 2 queens. You could upgrade to this view or that view and a non-smoking room or whatever. Those are all the rate pages, or all those are listed on the rate page. And then I think they're definitely calling out here a great segment that you guys should definitely use. Make sure you have it created, make sure you have it created correctly, is that member, Starwood SPG member. So if they have a customer number or whatever, again, I think they should tell you how that's defined typically, but
has joined the meeting.
If it's not defined, what you're going to be looking for is a customer number, and it's just if a customer number exists, then call them a member. And so look at, run a report without that segment, and then add the member segment. So you would have, for example, the Android segment that they give you, and then you would have Android plus member, which I think was one of the segments actually that they were going to do, so that you would have Android and member, and then you could take away the member segment, or you could create a segment that would exclude members. But either way you do it, the math should work out. You should have a total Android population, and then you have a member and a non-member within that same population, and that should equal 100%. So also, to make sure that you're doing things correctly, you can always pull things 2 ways, one with an include and an exclude, to get to a total like that, and the other would be to take the total and then the number of members, subtract them from each other to get to the non-members, and make sure that those match up. What do users typically do right after booking is completed? That's a really good question, actually. So here at Southwest, once you book air, you could then book car, hotel, or whatnot. So you could definitely look at what's called the next page report or the next page flow report, either one, and set the confirmation page as your initial page, and then look at the next page. A lot of people are probably going to leave the app immediately, and others, and that's fine. A lot of people are going to leave because I came to book, I booked, and I don't need the app until I stay again. But you might also take that concept and say, okay, after people unlock their room, what do? They may not use anything else in the app, or they may look up amenities in the hotel or stuff like that, and that would be an opportunity to look at what customers are doing at different stages in their journey. They talked about that as well. The different journey points that you have within travel are, people who are thinking about traveling, people who decide they're going to go, then they start shopping for hotels, then they book a hotel, then they shop for air, car, whatever else they need, until the day of travel. And of course, the day of travel, they may need documents or whatever it is. Then they get to the hotel, they check in, and then once you check in, there's other things, we call it wayfinding, and within wayfinding, that's a very big, broad category, which is how do I find my way around the hotel, how do I find the restaurant in the hotel, or the concierge, or phone numbers, or whatever. So look for all that opportunity as well within there. I think this was a good point, is that if you're looking on this slide, if you're looking under a certain language, make sure you don't go back further than the dates that are listed here, because there won't be Japanese or Spanish language before April 2015. But again, I know we kind of touched on this in class, if I pull that total and I don't trend it, so let's say I pull all of 2015 and say, okay, in 2015, how many were Spanish? You could get to the point where you said it was 3%, but you can't count all that time that happened in January, February, and March because Spanish wasn't even an option. So your denominator is wrong in that case, and you'd want to back it up a little bit. Do also note that iPhone was a big component of their traffic, and so also keep in mind things around that you may want to think iOS first, but you can always compare iOS to Android and say, okay, I expect them to behave about the same. Of the people that are on each of these, they should behave about the same. They should have about the same conversion rate. However, I would expect iOS customers to have more engagement, more sales per person, a higher average room night, and a longer number of nights in their stay. And for whatever reason, iOS or Apple customers just tend to spend more than Android in there. These are those page names that I was telling you about. Make sure that these are really good, probably indicators of what the rest of their page names look like. There is definitely a lot of abbreviations going on here. I can't stress enough, if you don't know the page name and you have a question, please ask it to the Starwood team and say, hey, I need to know what this page is called. But through next page flows, you may be able to figure it out pretty easy. This is their confirmation page. Again, the next page flow is going to be really helpful where customers are going from here. And then these are those segments. So this is the one that just excludes the bad Android data. And you can see prop 2 is where they store the version. In this case, it's Android and the actual app release number, as well as, you could create your segments off of that. Contains Android, contains iOS, things like that.
Hi, Jordan.
Yes.
Can I ask a question about this slice?
Sure.
You see, when they build a segment, they use the hit. So, does it make sense that we use the visit?
So it's a really good question. It has to do with their implementation. When they're using hit, what they're doing is they're probably sending that value on every single page. So what they're saying, you could probably do either, but to be more accurate, you're better off with the lower level granularity. Let me give you an example. I am on the app right now. I've been doing something. I upgrade my app to the new version, so I'm still within my 30 minutes of inactivity. So I'm in the same visit. I'm the same person. I'm on the same phone and whatnot. So in that case, if you said exclude anyone with Android, then at the visit level, you would be excluding everything they did, not everything they did on that version of the app. And don't forget, another example of that would be people who may have two phones or a phone and a tablet, and they may be logging in back and forth very frequently and looking like different people, but based on their customer number, they could be actually being tracked as one person. There's something called the Visitor ID service, and I don't know if Starwood has that in place or not, but if they do, if you log in on multiple devices, it actually treats you as one person going back and forth. So think about it that way as well, that I could be on my phone doing something, then be on my iPad, which would change everything, and then go back. So you really want to look at things more at the hit level if possible. And that by far is going to be, I'm hopeful that they set up most of the segments you're going to need. But when you're in the app world, I would definitely say lend yourself towards the hit segments within the app, and then you could run a report on visits as your metric. And I still highly recommend that anytime you hear the word people, that you look at visits, but that may be something that you want to call out in your presentation, because not everyone's going to be, the folks at Starwood, for example, who are judging you, they may prefer